Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Liz Lang. Each week on this podcast, we will break down various aspects of mental health. We are so excited you're here and hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, Liz Lang here with Jeremiah and Selina Woodruff from Core Connection. And this week we are going to get into body image. And before we do that, Selina has this week's parenting moment.
Yeah, so preparing for this topic, I've been reading and studying some stuff and some do's and don'ts for your children, what you say and don't say to them. So, of course, mom guilt came out as I remembered a situation that just happened recently. My son is 11 and, maybe typical boys don't really care what they wear, but I like my kids to look good because I'm the one that has to see them. Whenever they complain and say, why do you care what I wear? I'm like, you don't see what you're wearing. I'm the one that has to look at it.
Yep.
So he came out ready for school and I didn't like what he was wearing. And I really didn't even think about it. And I just was like, what? That does not look good together. I wanted to say it was like some dark green, like army green pants and then like a bright green shirt. And I personally didn't think it looked very good. And I was like, that does not look good. You need to go change one or the other. But then his sisters all started in and saying stuff and we were all saying stuff. And, I realized that we were just kind of joking and it really didn't matter. I guess I wasn't really joking, but I wasn't meaning to hurt him or personally attack him in that sort of way. It wasn't that big of a deal, but I realized that, sometimes in families we joke and we tease, but sometimes those things that we say really cut to them and cut to their image and cut to their self-confidence. So it kind of really made me sad thinking about that in the long run, it really doesn't even matter, and I pick up his friend later and his friend was wearing something similar. So I'm like, why do I even care about this? Because I didn't look at that kid and be like, what is that kid wearing? I noticed because I thought that's what my son was wearing. So, maybe actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. They must know fashion better than I do. So I guess just a reminder for me to be careful, even though I'm joking around or not that big of a deal to me. The things that come out of my mouth really do affect them and affect their awareness of themselves. So I'll have to make sure I go back and praise him and tell him that he does a good job with picking his clothes all the other days.
Well, just for the record, I told him I liked it and I would have wore it. But Selina said those same kinds of things to me since we started dating. So not so much now, but still on occasion.
Yeah.
She has to correct my wardrobe.
I was going to say his dad's voice saying that he liked it and that it looked good got drowned out by all his sisters and their opinions of how it didn't look good.
Girls do have more opinions on fashion than boys do. I think that's just a fact of culture, life, and just kind of a norm.
Yeah, I think we see it as a pair of pants and a shirt. We're good to go.
Yeah.
That's all we need.
In fairness, he did say, Mom, I'm just putting a sweatshirt over this.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And, and I will say that is maybe a cultural norm, but not everybody fits into that mold. For example, Curtis is actually pretty conscientious about what he wears and colors matching and coordinating. He cares sometimes more than I do. I mean, for example, he will not wear a blue shirt with blue jeans. I don't know why, but he's like, no, I can't do that. I can't wear a blue shirt with blue jeans. I'm like, or any color blue with blue jeans. I'm like, okay, I don't care, but he does. So everyone's different, but so this really does fit in perfect with what we're going to be talking about this week, because I think on the one hand, your intentions were there. Because I think in a large part, Selina, what you're trying to do is protect your son. You don't want him to be picked on or made fun of, or you don't want people making comments. And that's totally fair and reasonable because that's our job as parents. But I can also see where you're saying of in 10 years from now, in a month from now, even, is this going to matter? Is anybody going to care? Is anybody going to be talking about it or thinking about it?
Well, I'd much rather it come from him and his choices and what he decides and what he likes or doesn't like than being shamed into thinking what he's doing is wrong. So that's where I'm coming at it with it, is that it really doesn't even matter what he's wearing. If that's what he feels comfortable and confident in, then let it be that. I just personally have my own problem and opinions of looking at my children with what they're wearing. I really like them to look good when I look at them.
Sure, which is totally reasonable. I mean, and you're paying for their clothes, so it's also reasonable to have some say. You know, and it's not like we're talking about it's like -30 and he's trying to go out in a pair of shorts and flip-flops or something like that. So, right? Like, yeah, I think clothing choices are a really good way to help kids build autonomy and confidence and, you know, their own self-awareness. And maybe they do wear something that looks funny or is odd and they go to school and their peers make comments and, well, they learn, okay, I don't want to wear that anymore because people are going to make fun of me or, you know, or whatever. And so sometimes we just have to let kids learn those lessons the hard way, the natural way, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so the point of this episode is to help teens develop confidence in their body image. And body image is a big deal in the teen years. And, you know, this is mainly about teens, but I think it can be applicable to everybody. You know, I think body image is something that, at least in the American culture, and I imagine it's largely worldwide, but I know in American culture in particular, people put a lot of emphasis on body image. And that is why it can be so difficult for teens, because they are bombarded by body image. You should look a certain way. You should dress a certain way. You should have this body type. This body type is acceptable and attractive. This body type isn't. That's a lot of pressure and a lot of peer pressure. And teens want so desperately to fit in and to belong that they can really get stuck on it, and it can create some serious problems for them, some serious body image issues. So what we're trying to do, or what the overall goal should be, is to help them find a sense of belonging and worth that isn't tied to what their body looks like. And so, to summarize this entire episode in almost one sentence or one phrase, is focus more on health rather than image. Focus on, you know, what your body does for you. Is your body healthy? Are you taking care of your body, rather than what your body looks like? What are your guys' thoughts?
It's a complicated topic, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of forces out there influencing our children, and sometimes it's parents themselves that bring that influence, right? Even with this idea that Selina shared today about kind of being critical of what my son looked like when he went out to school. But we see a lot of things. We see the media portrays things in a certain way, bodies in a certain way that's beautiful or not beautiful. Pornography plays a huge role in this, because so much of that is fake and not real and touched up and presented in a way that it appears to be a certain way that's not realistic, right? The reality is that there's just a billion different types of bodies and shapes and sizes and designs, and it's supposed to be that way. It's one of the things that make us as human beings beautiful and amazing, is that we're all unique and we're all a little bit different. And so what a good looking body is can be so much different for one person to the next. Yet media and social media in particular portrays everybody fitting into one specific little box, which I just don't love. And so it really creates a lot of struggles, you know, for kids. And it's a great struggle, of course, for parents to combat that. But I do like the focus on, you know, learning to love your body and being healthy, because we're not just talking about weight. So many of the struggles out there with body image can come from individuals who don't need to lose any weight, but they're more concerned about the shape of this part or that part, or, you know, my nose, my ears, my eyes, whatever it looks like doesn't fit in this image that I see in the rest of the world. And so it could be a lot of things, but I think the real goal here as parents is that we want to help our kids love themselves for who they are and to learn to appreciate their bodies and what they can do, even when there are limitations to those bodies, being grateful for what the body can do, because it's a pretty remarkable thing, our bodies and what we can do.
Okay, let's take a quick break and we will be right back.
You've read all the books, you've studied all the tips, you've watched all the videos, you're doing all the right things, yet you're stuck. You're stuck in this cycle of trying to build a healthier life for yourself, but not being able to. Trust me, I've been there. And that's exactly why I created Vita with Alita. I'm Alita and I have a master's in kinesiology, and I've spent years trying to build a healthier life. Now, I want you to do the same. On this podcast, we talk fitness, mindset, habits, boundaries, and how to feel strong and grounded without any burnout or perfectionism. If that sounds like something you've been looking for, follow the show down in the description below and take back control of your health.
So I think it's important to understand when we're talking about teens, kind of where this is coming from, because first of all, rest assured, it's very normal. And like you said, Liz, it doesn't go away when we're teens. We deal with it throughout our life. And so this is a normal struggle. There are things to watch for and look for and be aware of to make sure that if extra help is needed, then of course we need to reach out to the appropriate people to get that help. But knowing and understanding that in puberty, which is teen years, is when your body starts changing. And you start being aware of things that are happening and maybe things you don't like or how you're different. And when we go back to learning and understanding what we already know about teens, is they want a sense of belonging. And so when they start feeling a threat from others that they don't belong, then that's going to heighten that sense of not belonging for them. And they're going to reach out to try to belong and to fit in and feel that worth, so that they don't feel like there's a threat there for them. So it makes sense for teens to be experiencing that at that time, because I can't think of 4 or 5-year-olds that struggle with body image. Most 4 or 5-year-olds just love themselves and think that they're awesome. So I think there's something to say that comes with puberty as you start developing your body, that some of those things are going to come out for those reasons, just because of the natural progression of life and learning and growing. I think another thing that I'm sure we'll get way more into it later, but I'll just touch on it real quick, is social media. You're a teen and that starts being a part of your life. And so you have a social world, but a lot of teens have social media as part of their social world. So it's not just interacting at school and who are we comparing and who are we seeing at school, who's a threat there. But then when we introduce social media, that brings that whole social world to all of that. And we all know that there's algorithm and there's ads and all of that money dumped into that beauty industry so that people will buy into that to change and always continually changing their bodies to be able to fit what they think is acceptable.
And it is very important to be aware of the algorithms. And I have a perfect example of this in my own personal life. So I listen to a couple of podcasts via YouTube regularly. And so there's ads. And I think there was one time where I paused or something, or I didn't skip an ad quick enough, and it was a weight loss ad. I was bombarded, saw more and more and more weight loss ads. And that's so important to be aware of for social media. And you might think, well, maybe they're not good, maybe it's not going to be a big deal, or maybe they don't care. But when they start seeing it, then it's going to be in their mind. And then there's other things that the algorithm can target, right? So if they see something that's like maybe a weight loss thing, well, then they're going to start seeing something of like maybe, this new trend diet or something like that. Or like there's just, it's like a rabbit hole, and it can just escalate and escalate and escalate. And so those algorithms are not your friend. They can be. We've talked about that. Like you can make them your friend. Like if you go through and you like a bunch of positive things, I've done that hack before. Like I just started liking a bunch of religious stuff, and all of a sudden my feed was flooded with like a bunch of religious stuff. And I'm like, this is great. This is what I want my social media to be like. But the opposite works in reverse. And so, social media is so important for teens to be aware of. And, sometimes it could even be inadvertent, like with me, right? I mean, I didn't intentionally interact with this ad for weight loss, but I did. But the algorithm thinks, oh, she's interested in weight loss. So they just keep sending me more and more and more and more and more. So I think it's important just to talk to teens about that, just to be open with them and say, hey, this is how it works and this is what's going to happen. You need to understand that, because if they know that, if they're armed with that knowledge, it's going to be at least easier for them to combat, those thoughts, and to be able to say, okay, this is the algorithm, and at least help them compartmentalize it. That's not 100% foolproof, but it's at least helpful, and something that you should be talking to your teens about as they're introduced to social media.
Yeah, being aware and understanding what ads are. It's like, what are they selling? What are they trying to promote to me? Is this realistic? Is this something that is even attainable? Is this real life? A lot of times it really isn't. But is this the norm? But obviously comparing is huge. Comparison is a thief of joy. If you're continually comparing, you're not going to find happiness.
Right. And I think another thing that's important to talk about with teens that they are going to see regardless, because I mean, they're bombarded every day with ads, movie stars, TVs. You go to the grocery store or you go to Walmart or any type of department store, and you're going to see ads of beautiful women or, perfectly sculpted men that are wearing these clothes, and they're doing that to try to get you to want to wear those clothes. And it's important to point that out to teens and talk about that. They target specific audiences in this specific population, and they're trying to get you to want to buy those clothes by putting them in somebody that the media perceives as attractive, because then you're going to wear it because you want to look like that. And so, just talking to teens and explaining this is the way the world works, and you don't have to fall for it. You can just choose to think differently, or, alter your thoughts. I think can go a long way in helping combat some of those body image issues that teens run into, because you're just bombarded and you can't lock them in a room. You can't protect them from it. All you can do is just talk about it. Okay, so let's get into what parents can say and avoid saying. So, as we talked about before, you can focus on strength, health, and how your bodies work. So things like, hey, your body is so amazing. The way it digests your food and it provides nutrients, and that's a good thing. That's a great way. And I think it can especially be a really good way around food, because food can create a lot of issues, and we need food. It's like food is not optional for human beings. And so I think a really great way to help, or where that can tie into body image issues and help prevent them, is talking about the importance of eating nutritious foods, right? And saying, like, we want to eat a variety. We want, like, fruits and vegetables are good for our body. It gives our body energy, and it's important to fuel our bodies, and because our bodies need energy in order to function. And isn't it amazing the way your body can take this carrot and process it and give you energy your body needs, or this salad or this pasta or this slice of pizza that you're eating. Our bodies are amazing in the way that they work. I think just positivity around food can really help avoid body image issues.
Yeah, and I think helping change the relationship with food. We use food for a lot of different things. We use it for social gatherings. We use it for comfort. We use it for nutrition. We use it for all kinds of things. But the primary reason we consume food is to fuel our bodies. And so, sometimes helping our kids understand the purpose of consuming food. It's not because it tastes so good and brings us satisfaction, but it's because it's something our body needs to function in everyday life. And so we don't want to focus on being negative. Hey, how many cheeseburgers have you had this week? Or, don't you think that's more than enough ice cream? But having more of a conversation around the purpose. And sometimes, we're in a social setting. Maybe we're going to get ice cream with a group of friends, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad, but just understanding what our purpose is and why we're consuming these things. I know for me on a personal level, that helps me think a little bit more clearly about food, because I love food. I love to eat. And I think that sometimes we get that mixed up a little bit in our minds of what the purpose is.
So there's a book called More Than a Body from Dr. Lindsay and Dr. Lexie. They're actually twin sisters that wrote this book. And I really enjoy listening to their thoughts about body image. And something that I appreciate that they share is kind of changing that mindset about a body, because they feel that a body is an ornament in our society. And they want to shift that to our body as an instrument. We don't have our bodies to like decorate and make them look so good for everybody, but our body is an instrument. What does our body do for us? So, like you talked about eating food, our body is fueled and our body, runs, or it gets us to where we need to go, or it breathes and it has like really good feelings or even bad feelings, and we can process, we could talk to people. Like, we could go on and on and on about the miracle and things that our body is capable of doing. So, and shifting, talking about our bodies with our kids is pointing out our bodies and what they do. And we know as we get older, they sometimes don't be as capable, but still appreciating what they can do and what they do for us. So like, even when you eat a donut and you feel crappy, you're like, well, thank you, body, for getting me through that, because I really did enjoy eating that donut and what came with that. So thank you now for getting up and still going and still making things happen for me. So I just appreciate that mind shift in thinking about our bodies in that way, that they're not just an ornament out there, that they are an instrument for us to use. And so working on loving all of that, all parts of it. Because what was fascinating is when they did their research, I wanted to share this real quick, that when they did their research, they'd ask people that they were questioning, they would ask the question, how do you feel about your body? And all the answers would come back with things about looks. It was like, oh, I have brown hair. Oh, this or that, or about their body. But all the answers came back of their looks. And they're like, no, that's not how you feel about your body. That's, you're describing what you look like. So we just don't know how we feel about our body. And maybe it's more of, I don't like my nose, or I don't like this or that. So the answers weren't like, what am I capable of doing? Like, I love that my body is able to run 7 miles. We never describe those things about how we feel about our body. So I think that's really interesting, and to just be aware, and to maybe in our own language and verbiage as we're speaking to other people, just like, oh, you look so skinny, but like, even talking about our own bodies, like, I appreciate that my body gets up in the morning and gets me going to what I need to take care of for the day.
I appreciate you sharing that, Selina. And maybe shifting gears just a little bit and moving away from that focus on the body, because I think what happens is we tend to derive our value, or some derive their value based on their body and what they look like. And the things we say as parents can be really, really important here, where we want to focus more on where does value come from, and that it's independent of what we look like. It's independent of our appearance, but our value comes from so many other things. As a human being, we have this infinite worth and value, and it's not based on what our body looks like. We're not less valuable if we're in a car accident and become a quadriplegic. We still have infinite value. And so helping our kids understand that can also be helpful in reducing those struggles that come with body image.
And I think another thing to keep in mind, and one thing that can be important, is there are times where you do have to talk about maybe the number on the scale, right? So sometimes weight does become an issue if you have a child who is dealing with obesity, or if they are underweight. Sometimes you have to address those health issues. And so in those instances, for one, you need to be, hopefully you're working with a doctor. So professional is going to be critical. And I think in those instances, it's going to be best to let the doctor say the things. You don't need to be the one to, you can discuss the plan, but in instances, I think it's going to be best to have the doctor do that. And I've dealt with this before. So, I've had kids who have struggled with weight. So I've talked about this before, our son who is hypoglycemic, And, he's had struggles with weight gain in the past. And so what we really do and what we really try to focus on is the overall health. It's not about the number. The number on the scale is just a number. I don't care about the number. I care about how your body is functioning and what your overall health looks like. And so I think when you do have these instances where you do have to address specific types about the body, and that can apply for anything. Maybe they've got something going on, like maybe there is a benign growth somewhere on their body and it needs taken care of, or like sometimes, or I don't know, maybe they've got something going on internally, like I can think of like a deviated septum that's causing snoring or something like that, and the shape of their nose has to change or something. So sometimes these issues are going to come up and there's just nothing we can do about it. And in those instances, I think it's best just to, again, like we've said, focus on our bodies are an instrument, our bodies are a tool, and we get to shape how they function, and we get to be in control of so much of our bodies. And we may have to do this or alter this or change this, but my main focus is your overall health, not what you look like.
Well, I might argue with you a little bit on that.
Sure.
I would be happy to talk to my kids rather than have a doctor talk to them about these struggles.
Sure.
But that's me. And I know everybody's a little bit different. That's okay. If you're not comfortable having that conversation with your children and it's better to come from a professional, then absolutely. But the focus here is that we're not telling our kids that, hey, you're fat, you need to go on a diet, but we're saying, hey, we have some concerns about your health. And here's kind of the result of not making these changes in our life to improve our overall well-being. And you're right. We shouldn't be worried about that number on the scale. We're worried about the overall health and our capacity to be active and do the things that we want to do. And here's kind of the direction we'd have to go if we want to correct that. And same thing goes with putting weight on, right? Like, you're a skinny little twig. You need to eat some more food. We need to fatten you up.
Yep.
Well, that could give us other issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, man, I'm a little bit concerned about your health. I want to make sure that you're getting enough food each day and that you're getting the right kinds of food so that you can do the things that you want to do. Hey, you really love to, skateboard, or you love to go hiking, or, you love playing on the sports team. And so we want to make sure that we're fueling your body so it has the calories and the energy and the strength it needs to do those things that you're interested in doing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make some shifts in what we consume, and we're going to help you along the path. And so when we have that kind of conversation, we move away from the shame, because there's shame in both of those languages of, hey, we need to fatten you up, or, hey, you're too fat, we need to put you on a diet. There's a lot of shame and negative that's going to come from that. So having those conversations about health and caring for ourselves and what we want to do with our lives, that's going to be the focus. And then we don't worry so much about what it looks like, because the looks are going to come through the lifestyle changes anyway.
And sometimes as parents too, I feel like we can perpetuate this. We are modeling often for our kids, oh, I can't eat that, I'm on a diet. I think the word diet is an absolute terrible phrase. Diets are not effective. What you need to do is a lifestyle change. You can say, oh, you know what? I'm going to choose a different option. I don't want to eat ice cream tonight because I'm trying to make a lifestyle change, and I'm trying to, eat healthier so that I can manage my health better. That's a completely different conversation and a completely different tone, as opposed to, I got fat and now I can't eat ice cream. So, right. And I know that's like an extreme, but modeling this piece for our kids is so important. And it's okay to talk about, I'm trying to eat healthier and I'm making this lifestyle change. So I don't know. I hate the word diet. They're not effective. They don't work. And just cutting out foods that you love it's never effective. Anyways, we could do a whole episode on just nutrition, but keep in mind that you are modeling for your kids the way you talk about food and the way you talk about your own health and your own body. Okay, so the last thing that I want to briefly bring up before we wrap up is that if you notice signs of an eating disorder, if your kid has put on a ton of weight in a short amount of time, lost a ton of weight in a short amount of time, if there's persistent negative self-talk, avoidance of social activities or situations, or if they have an extreme focus on their appearance, you need to seek professional help. If there is any type of an instance of any sort of eating disorder going on, then you need to get support from a professional to deal with that.
Yeah, and with any potential eating disorder, we want to look for specialists. This isn't just your average counselor that's dealing with depression or anxiety. Eating disorders are very, very complicated and challenging and require some specialty training. We want to get them into somebody who can really help. And eating disorders are not always visible.
Yep.
In fact, they don't start off very visible at all. And most of us probably wouldn't even notice. Having the connection with our children to where they'll communicate with us is obviously the ideal if that's possible. But we've got to be paying attention. We've got to be noticing what our kids are eating. Does it look like maybe they're purging, vomiting? Are they binge eating? We want to watch for those things. Are they consuming enough calories? Or are we seeing them take smaller and smaller portions that aren't big enough to sustain daily life? We want to look for those things and make sure that if we even think there's something going on, we can get them to a counselor and see if that's what we need to do, or into a specialist or a doctor, whatever it takes. We want to make sure that if we are worried that there's something going on there as far as a potential eating disorder, that we want to get on that as quickly as possible. It's a complicated thing to manage. And so we want to, the earlier we have an intervention with those things, typically the better and more successful we can be.
And often it might start with a conversation with a pediatrician, just so parents are aware. You might need to go through that route, and then they will get you a referral to a specialist. But advocate for your kid. Say, hey, I don't want to just do talk therapy or just do a therapist. I would like to see someone who specializes this. Oftentimes there are eating disorder centers that specialize in that type of a care, and it really will be a more comprehensive care. So they will have a doctor who sees their overall health. They will have a dietitian, and then they will have a therapist who specializes it. So it really is a multifaceted and multidisciplined care.
I have a suggestion. I know you guys are talking extreme scenarios, but just if you start seeing that your kid is struggling or not wanting to go in social settings, and you just are worried if there's a lot of negative talk about their body image, I would suggest like a media cleanse, taking them off of media and having them have a break from that to see if that helps them to find a different perspective.
Yeah. Circling back to that media topic that we touched on earlier, man, social media in particular, and Selina's not just talking about social media. She's talking about media as a whole. Because almost all media really portrays specific body images in a certain light. But gosh, there's so much influence that media has on our children. And so we want to be aware of what they're watching. And you can go back and listen to all of our different episodes where we've talked often about social media and our children and other media and what they consume and what they watch, and how important it is to be aware of what that is, and to make sure we have the safeguards in place to kind of keep them safe from those things. There's just so many different reasons why, and this is one of them. So I appreciate Selina bringing that up.
Yeah, good advice. Okay, next week we are going to get into when teens feel left out, and we will see you all then. Have a question? How about a topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at mentalhealthpod21@gmail.com.